So Pearl Davis, Catholic, right? Hey, that's good news. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and we've had a little Twitter drama today, Ronan, and we're gonna kind of dissect it a little bit because over at Just Pearly Things, talking about Pearl Davis, super famous, YouTube interviewer, show host type, talks a lot about dating, a lot about feminism and men's issues, and she's very anti-feminist, which we're anti-feminist over here at Red Top Report, Ronan.
Yeah, there's no Christian feminism.
No Christian feminism at all whatsoever, and there's no feminism, period. It's all from the devil.
We try to keep things informal here, as well as infernal.
She's under attack. And not for what I would have expected her to be under attack for. For the longest time, I actually did not think she was religious at all, but put up the tweet, I'm Catholic. Stop saying I don't believe in God and I denounce Christ. That is lies. You are just as bad as the fake news media. So Pearl Davis, Catholic, right? Hey, that's good news. Congratulations, Pearl. We supported 100. I don't know how practicing she is. I don't know if she's going to mass or anything like that. Hey, Pearl, if you watch the video, let us know. We'd love to have you on and talk more about your Catholic faith, to be honest with you. What do you think?
Dude, that'd be fat.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But yeah, and she's been under a lot of scrutiny lately, and it's mostly from those like manosphere red pill types, because a lot of those guys are like, they're just like, oh, just sleep with a bunch of women, do this, have multiple wives, it's all okay. The Andrew Tate types. There's another guy, Jack Donovan, that I got into it with on Twitter. That's like, he wrote this book, The Way of Men, that was like really, pretty well known. And, it turns out he was like a former homosexual Satanist. And then he got into men's issues and said, oh, I'm actually not attracted to men. I'm just attracted to masculinity. I'm like, are you? I was like, well, I'm attracted to masculinity too, but I don't want to have sex with men.
Gay!
So there's that. Anyways. So we got some more tweets of her talking about Catholicism, and we kind of want to break them down kind of for the audience, and I want to defend her. I want to defend her on this. She's been pretty good. So she says, the idea that someone could just be a serial killer for 20 years and then say sorry at 89 and get the same level of salvation as Mother Teresa makes no sense to me. Now, this is her Catholic upbringing coming in, because she actually went to Catholic school. You could put up that tweet, too, that she put out about going there. But, yeah, Pearl's got a very Catholic view here, because there's this Protestant belief that, oh, everybody's in heaven and everybody's all equal and they're all just frolicking through the forests together. Over the river and through the woods. That's not true. That's not what heaven is. And I commented something on one of her tweets about this, but I basically told her is like, yes, this is correct. If you look at all of God's creation, and we're talking both supernatural and natural, guys, supernatural and natural, you'd be hard pressed to find anything that God has created that doesn't exist in some form of hierarchy. The angels exist in a hierarchy. There's a graphic that you got to put up to show what that is, with seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, principalities, all those sorts of different types of angels and how they are actually organized in a hierarchy. And that's the supernatural hierarchy. Why on earth would it somehow be different in heaven? If hierarchy is good, and it's good enough to exist among the angels, and it's good enough to exist in all of his other creations, and heaven is this place that is all good, why on earth would there not be a hierarchy in heaven? And the answer is, of course there is. And obviously, Mother Teresa is in a much higher position in heaven than the serial killer who just got into heaven by the skin of his teeth and repented before he died. There's purgatory that you would have to deal with there, which is like a waiting room where you're on fire for, however long you have to purgate the sins that have dirtied your soul, even though you've asked for forgiveness. Like anything else in life, the soul in many ways mirrors the body. If you commit a sin with your body, the temporal effects of that body or of that sin do not go away on your body. Well, it's very true of the soul as well. Now, going deeper into this, if you think about Mother Teresa, every single person that God makes has a capacity for grace. a capacity of grace. And I've always broken it down this way for people. You can think of maybe, that 89-year-old serial killer. Maybe he's like a thimble of grace, about a thimble full of grace, right? Then you look at somebody maybe like St. Francis of Assisi. I mean, he's more like, he's a really good saint. Like, we love St. Francis of Assisi. He's maybe like a swimming pool filled with grace compared to that thimble. And then you have somebody like Our Lady, who's like an ocean of grace. And you think about that for a moment, every single one of those things can be entirely filled with grace. They can be entirely filled with grace, yet they are all filled, but they are all different containers of it. And that is how the hierarchy in heaven is believed to be organized. And as it's organized, you look at heaven kind of this way. It's the beatific vision. It's the beholding of God in all of his glory. Now, in that beholding of all of God's glory, you have different levels of clarity in which you can see and behold that glory. You are still beholding it. You are still beholding it in the fullness that you are capable of beholding it in when you are in heaven, and you are fully happy and you are fully fulfilled. But there are levels, obviously, and at the top of that among human beings is going to be obviously, Jesus Christ, of course, King, and then there's going to be Our Lady. Those are the two that are the greatest. So Pearl is definitely right about that, and that is the Catholic position on how heaven is organized, and that's the most commonly accepted teaching by theologians. So and now I know we got more from her as well. So let's keep it going. Leftists have gotten into the Catholic Church too, and I think they're more common than Catholics want to admit. Oh, this is 100% true, Ronan. Like, this is 100% true. This is something that church militants actually been talking about for like the longest time, and I really do think that more Catholics need to be cognizant of this, and I'm glad to hear that Pearl is. So as my sister in Christ, Pearl, you're on the money with this one. Catholics do not care to admit that their church is being infiltrated, and it is actively being infiltrated. It's being infiltrated by Marxists. You can look at the story of Bella Dodd, who talked about putting, 1,100, working with the Communist Party and Joseph Stalin to put 1,100 communists into the Catholic priesthood, and a lot of them became bishops and cardinals. You look at the depth of how deep this goes, and one of the main mechanisms they used to do this was homosexuality. So one of the interesting things about that is, oof, I had to sneeze there, is that through homosexuality, they were able to kind of turn the priesthood over on its head, and in many ways it created the abuse crisis that we're all aware of today. If you look at like the John Jay report for example, it'll talk about like how maybe, I think it was like 5% or so of all instances of clerical sex abuse with minors was of actual like prepubescent children, and how it was actually mostly boys. I think 85% of all of the abuse was boys. It was something like 85% was all boys. And then of the ages 13 to 18. Which is very interesting because a vast majority of homosexuals will say that their first sexual experience was with older men at that specific period. So it would be no shock to me that if the gay lifestyle were to be grafted into the priesthood, I'm not going to be able to lay it down exactly like that and be able to tell you with 100% certainty, but it would make a lot of sense that the homosexual, which there's several studies that say this, do have a higher percentage chance of, being involved in pederasty. It's no surprise that if they infiltrated the priesthood, that they would be somehow overtly causing an abuse crisis of boys in the church. Why isn't it women? If there's this sex abuse problem, why isn't it so overwhelmingly women? If it's just these evil, sex abusers in the church, well, there's obviously a homosexual element to it because they're attracted to men and not boys. Or they're attracted to boys. They're not attracted to little kid boys like a lot of gay rights activists will point at this. They'll say that. oh, it's pedophiles are actually attracted to youthfulness, and they don't care if it's a boy or a girl. They'll just molest whoever they want to. Well, when it's the case of 13 to 17-year-old boys, those are post-pubescent boys. And that's the main thing that these priests are targeting. And they're also targeting seminarians. Church Militant has many stories up about that. She's absolutely right. Catholic Church has been infiltrated. What do we got next? All the churches basically say, pick my church or you're probably going to hell. Yeah, I would say that that's a good portion of them. There's like this weird like Protestant thing too, or like the 40,000 denomination. Well, no, we're in communion with some of them, but Catholics are pagans, so they're not part of that. And some will say Catholics are part of that, and some won't. But there's a little bit of nuance, I think, there that she needs to acknowledge. And because specifically regarding the Catholic Church, I know she did say that yes, unless you're Catholic, you can't go to heaven. Yeah, you can't get into heaven unless you're Catholic. What happens after your death is kind of what the church has clarified in Vatican II, Lumen Gentium specifically. What they talk about is this principle called invincible ignorance. And invincible ignorance is the idea that for whatever reason you were deprived of Catholic truth and you had no way of gaining access to it in your lifetime. And then maybe you grew up in a Amish community or something. I mean, there's no Catholicism in the Amish community. They have no access to it. They're very secluded.
As I walk through the valley where I harvest my grain.
There's nothing in there, whatever that might be. And you go before God and you go before your creator. Yeah, there's a chance that they can be saved out of their goodwill. There's a chance that they can be saved out of their goodwill. And now a lot of Catholics will say, whoa, hold on a second. The Council of Trent has this teaching called extra ecclesiam nulla salus. And extra ecclesiam nulla salus translated into English means there is no salvation outside of the church. And obviously they're referring to the Catholic Church. So how do they reconcile that? Well, the idea is that if you are invincibly ignorant and you go before your creator and you had no access to this, you are, how do I put it, saved in that instance. This is what it's taught. You are saved, but you are only saved because of the graces provided on earth by the Catholic Church. So there is no salvation outside of the church, correct? And the reason you're getting your salvation, Mr. Invincibly Ignorant Amish person in our example, is because of the Catholic Church. So, like I said, I'm defending Pearl here. She's getting a lot of flack for coming out and defending a lot of Catholic ideas. And I think that it's good to give her a fair shake. But on that, there's just a little nuance. It's not just like, oh, not Catholic, hell. It's not that simple. Is there anything else we got?
That's it.
That's all we got for this episode? Okay, well, I guess we're going to wrap it up on that one then, guys. Please give us a follow on Instagram. Please give us a follow on Twitter. And guys, subscribe to the channel and click the notifications bell so you know when we are dropping new content. Oh, and guess what, guys? I forgot to do this thing at the beginning of the video. You need to give us your money.
Some people said they don't like it, and I said, well, what color is your bagay?
And you can give us your money by going to buymeacoffee.com. You can do a single donation, or you can do a monthly Joe for Joe donation for only $5 a month. And with that said, guys, that's all we got for this episode. Pearl, you're welcome to come on anytime. Just letting you know that. We'll talk to you about Catholic stuff, Ronan.
Talk to you all day about Catholic stuff. That's what we do here.
That's what we do here, guys. And with that said, we'll see you next time. God bless.